$400 a year. That's roughly what you hand over every season for grass seed, weed killer, and those heavy bags of fertilizer that promise a lawn like a golf green. Picture it. You walk outside on a Saturday morning, coffee in your hand, the dew still sitting on the blades, and for about 3 seconds it looks fine. Then your eyes catch it, the thin yellow patch near the path, the bare dirt under the tree that never fills in no matter what you do, the weeds standing tall in the corner you swear you sprayed last month. And here's who put you there. The man in the bright apron at the garden center, the one who waves you toward the biggest bag with the greenest picture on the front, the fertilizer label that tells you to pour on more, and then more again. An entire industry that only makes money when your lawn stays just broken enough to keep you coming back. They never lied to you exactly, they just never told you the whole truth. You know this feeling in your gut. You do the same thing every spring. You rake, you reseed, you spread the granules, you water it faithfully for weeks, and for a little while it actually looks better. Then July arrives, the heat sets in, and it's right back to thin, patchy, and tired. Same fight, same money, same quiet disappointment year after year after year. So here's the hard truth. Most people try to fix an ugly lawn by feeding the grass. But actually, you can't fix it by feeding the grass at all, because the grass standing alone is the problem. You dump on seed, you dump on synthetic nitrogen, you spray the weeds dead, and nothing really changes because you've been treating the symptom while starving the cause. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to fix an ugly lawn using companion planting. That means putting the right plants right beside your grass so they feed it, shield it, and crowd out the junk for you with no extra bag of chemicals. We'll break this into two halves. First, the thin, bare, hungry lawn that won't fill in. Second, the weedy lawn that keeps getting invaded no matter what you do. And then right at the end, I'll give you the one approach. This entire video was built around the single thing that stops both problems from ever coming back. I'm not going to name it yet. You'll understand exactly why when we get there. But first, let me ask you something that might sting a little. What if the bare patches in your lawn aren't there because the grass is weak, but because the grass is starving and you've been feeding it the one thing that makes it hungrier? That brings us straight to part one, the thin and bare lawn that simply refuses to fill in. And we start here because this is the version that hurts the most. It's the spot you see every single day, the one you can't unsee, the one that makes the whole yard look neglected even when the rest is green. Here's what you do without even thinking about it. You spot the bare patch, you grab a bag of quick green fertilizer, and you spread it heavy because it feels like the strong, decisive move. And I get it. Within about 4 days, the grass flushes a deep, satisfying green and you feel like you won. But here's what's actually happening beneath your feet. That synthetic nitrogen is a fast-release salt. It forces a burst of top growth the grass can't support, and that same salt dries out and damages the soil life underneath the earthworms and the microbes that actually build healthy ground. Studies on soil biology have measured earthworm populations dropping by as much as 60 to 70% in lawns hammered with heavy synthetic feed. With those workers gone, the soil compacts, the roots stay shallow, barely 2 inches deep, and the next time it rains, the water just runs off the top and takes your money with it. So here's the reframe. Every bag of quick-release fertilizer doesn't feed your lawn. It puts your lawn on a drip, and it kills the very thing that would let it feed itself. So let's do it the right way, from the simplest move to the smartest one. The simplest fix is to overseed those bare and thin patches with white clover and ideally microclover, which is just a smaller, finer leaf version that blends in and looks like part of the lawn. Here's the mechanism, and this is the part nobody at the garden center tells you. Clover roots form little nodules that house bacteria called rhizobia, and those bacteria pull nitrogen straight out of the air and convert it into food the grass roots can use. A healthy clover stand can fix the equivalent of around 100 to 150 pounds of nitrogen per acre every year. That is free fertilizer, made on site, delivered directly to the roots for the price of a small bag of seed. You want to sow it at roughly a quarter pound of microclover per 1,000 square feet. Scratch the bare soil with a rake first so the seed makes real contact. Scatter it, press it down with your foot or a roller, and keep it lightly moist for 2 to 3 weeks while it takes. Do this when the soil temperature sits above about 55 degrees, which usually means early spring or early autumn, never the dead heat of midsummer. The next step up is to address why the patch went bare in the first place, because thin grass over compacted soil will keep thinning no matter what you seed. So before you overseed, take a garden fork and drive it into the bare zone every 4 inches and rock it back and forth to crack the compaction open. That gives the new roots and the clover somewhere to actually go. And if you want the advanced version, mix a thin handful of compost into those holes as you open them so the seed lands in living soil instead of dead dust. Now, understand what's truly at stake if you keep doing this the old way. That bare patch under the tree isn't just ugly. Every season you ignore the real cause, it spreads a little wider, the weeds move into the open dirt, and you end up buying the same seed twice and the same fertilizer 3 times. You spend the money, you spend the weekends, and the patch still wins. Bare soil never stays bare for long. Something is going to grow there. The only question is whether you choose what it is. And here's your one universal prevention tip for this whole first half. Mow high. Set your mower to 3 inches, not the 1.5 inches most people scalp it to. Taller grass shades its own roots, holds moisture, and shades out weed seeds before they ever sprout. That single setting change does more than half the bags in the garage. Quick thing before we go further, if this is the kind of stuff nobody ever tells you in the garden aisle, do me a favor and tap subscribe, because this is exactly what every video on this channel does. We pull back the curtain on the simple mechanical reasons your lawn behaves the way it does. One tap, and then let's get right back into it. And if you want to go even deeper into this system, the full companion planting framework, the soil feeding methods, and the exact blends that work for every type of yard, this is a good moment to mention something that lays it all out in one place. The Amish Lawn Guide, the Amish Soil Guide, and the Complete Amish Yard Field Edition are 3 books built around exactly this philosophy. No synthetic inputs, no repeat purchases, just a living system you set up once and let run. Together, they walk you through every step, from soil prep to seed selection to seasonal care, in the kind of detail this video can only point toward. They're available as a bundle for $97, and you'll find the link in the description below. Now, with that foundation in hand, let's get into the second half of this, the invaded lawn, and why almost everything you've been told about fighting weeds is working against you. Now, part 2 is a completely different beast, technically and biologically, because here the problem isn't a hungry lawn, it's an invaded one, and the fix runs in the opposite direction. So let me give you the thesis straight up. Weeds are not invaders. Weeds are a symptom. Bare exposed soil is the wound, and the weed is just the scab your yard grows to cover it. Here's the universal mistake almost everyone makes, and it's a slow motion disaster. You see dandelions and crabgrass and clumps of who knows what, so you reach for a broadleaf weed killer and you blast the whole lawn. It feels powerful. The weeds curl up and die within a week, and you feel like you've taken back control. But here's the catastrophic part that plays out over the following months. That spray opens up dozens of fresh bare spots where the weeds used to be, and weed seeds are sitting in your soil by the tens of thousands, waiting for exactly that. They need bare ground and sunlight to germinate. So you've just cleared the table and rung the dinner bell. By late summer, the weeds come back thicker than before, and now you've also knocked back the soil life, so the grass is even less able to compete. You didn't solve the problem, you fed it. So actually, most people fight weeds by killing what's there, but the real win is filling the space so nothing new can move in. So let's fill that space from the cheapest and simplest option up to the one a professional would reach for. Method 1 is creeping thyme and low ground cover plants tucked into the gaps along edges, between stones, and in the thin, dry, sunny strips where grass always struggles. Here's why it works. Creeping thyme grows in a dense, low mat that hugs the ground and blocks sunlight from ever reaching the soil surface. No light at the soil line means weed seeds simply can't trigger germination, because most of them are hardwired to only sprout when they sense open sky above them. A flat of thyme plugs runs about $30 to $40 and covers a surprising stretch of border, and once it's in, it spreads on its own and smells incredible when you walk on it. Method 2 is the workhorse, and it's Dutch white clover used as a living mulch across the open body of the lawn. This is the same plant that feeds your grass in part 1, but here you're using it for a second job, pure coverage, Clover knits together into a thick, soft carpet that leaves no bare soil for weeds to colonize, and because it's fixing its own nitrogen, it stays green and lush right through the summer heat when your grass goes dormant and gold. Sow it across thin areas at that same 1/4 pound per 1,000 square feet, and within about 6 to 8 weeks, you've got a dense mat doing the weed blocking work for you for free, forever. Instead of a herbicide bottle, you have to buy again every season. Method 3 is the one a pro designing a resilient lawn would actually reach for, and it's a deliberate, diverse seed blend, sometimes called a tapestry lawn. Instead of a single type of grass, which is a monoculture and therefore fragile, you sow a mix of fine fescues with white clover, yarrow, and self-heal. Here's the mechanism that makes it so powerful. Each plant occupies a different niche. Fine fescue thrives in shade and drought. Yarrow sends roots deep down past 12 inches, mining minerals and surviving when everything else wilts. Self-heal stays low and flowers, and clover feeds the whole community. Together they fill every layer above ground and below, so there is literally no open seat at the table for a weed to take. A diverse blend like this costs maybe $60 to $80 to seed a typical front lawn, and it shrugs off the dry spells, the foot traffic, and the pests that flatten a single species lawn. That's the climb. Thyme holds your edges, clover blankets, your open ground, and a full tapestry blend turns the whole thing into a self-defending system. Now here is part 3, prevention. And this is the one I sealed at the very beginning, the entire reason this video exists. Everything else manages the problem. This is the thing that ends it. The single approach is to feed the soil, not the grass, with an annual compost top dressing combined with companion overseeding. That's it. That's the secret the fertilizer aisle will never sell you, because you can only buy it once and then it pays you back for years. Here's why it works. Mechanically, in one breath, a thin layer of compost feeds the microbes, earthworms, and fungi in your soil, and that living network is what releases steady nutrients, builds spongy organic matter that holds water through a drought, and gives your companion plants the foundation to thrive. The material is simple, finished compost, the dark, crumbly, sweet-smelling kind, plus your companion seed blend of clover and fescue. To apply it, once a year in early autumn, you rake a 1/4 inch of compost across the lawn, scatter your seed blend over the top, and water it in, and that's the whole job in one afternoon. And here's the number that should make you smile. Once this living system establishes, you stop buying synthetic fertilizer and weed killer entirely, which takes that $400 a year and drops it to maybe $40 for compost and seed. That's $360 back in your pocket every single year, plus all the weekends you stop losing to the same losing fight. So which path is yours? If you've got a big sunny lawn with kids and dogs running across it, go heavy on white clover and microclover. It's tough, soft, self-feeding, and bounces back from traffic. If your lawn is shady, dry, or sitting on poor thin soil where nothing seems happy, build around fine fescue with self-heal and a compost top dress to wake the ground up. And if you actually want that low, flowering, alive look, the lawn, the neighbors slow down to stare at, go for the full tapestry blend with creeping thyme along the edges. Match the plant to your patch, and you stop fighting your yard and start working with it. Now, here's the new problem that lands. The second you do all this right, the first time you go to mow a lawn full of clover and flowering companions, you're going to freeze because you won't know how high to cut it, when to cut it, or how to keep from scalping the clover and mowing down every bee in the yard. Get the mowing wrong and you can undo a whole season's work in 20 minutes. So if that's the wall you know you're about to hit, type the word mow in the comments right now and I'll know to make it for you. The next video breaks down exactly how to mow and maintain a companion lawn through the whole season without killing the very plants doing the work. Subscribe so it lands in front of you the day it goes up, because the planting is only half the battle and the half nobody explains is what comes after. And while you wait for that one, let me give you a few things that will save you from the mistakes I see people make in the first few weeks. Because the truth is, most companion lawns fail in the first month, not because the idea is wrong, but because of small timing errors nobody warns you about. Start with watering, because this is where people kill clover before it ever gets going. New clover seed is tiny, and it sits right on the surface where it can bake dry in a single sunny afternoon. So for the first 2 to 3 weeks, you want to water lightly twice a day, just enough to keep the top ½ inch damp, not soaked, soak it, and the seed floats and rots. Let it dry once at the wrong moment, and the sprout dies on contact. Think of it like a damp sponge, never a puddle and never a dust bowl. Once the clover is established, flip it completely. Mature clover and fescue want deep, infrequent watering, about an inch once a week, because that drives the roots down, chasing the moisture, and deep roots are what carry your lawn through August without you standing there with a hose every night. Next, watch the soil temperature, not the calendar. People rush out the first warm Saturday in March and throw seed on cold, wet ground, and it just sits there until the birds eat it. Clover and fescue both want that soil sitting steadily above 55 degrees. A cheap soil thermometer costs about $10 and takes the guessing out of it entirely. Push it 2 inches into the ground in the morning, and when it holds above 55 for a few days running, that's your green light. In most of the US and the UK, that means mid to late spring, or the back half of September when the soil is still warm from summer but the air has cooled. That autumn window is honestly the best one because the weeds are slowing down while your companions are still racing to root. Here's another thing nobody mentions. Go easy on the lime and the chemicals for a full season after you seed. Clover and the rhizobia bacteria living in its roots are sensitive, and if you blast the lawn with a broadleaf weed killer out of old habit, you will wipe out the very clover you just paid for, because to a herbicide, clover reads as a broadleaf weed too. So once you commit to companion planting, the spray bottle goes in the bin. That's not a sacrifice. That's the whole point. The plants are doing the job the chemicals use to pretend to do. And let me settle a worry I know is sitting in the back of your mind: the bees. Clover flowers and flowers bring pollinators, and if you've got young kids running barefoot, you might be nervous about that. Here's the simple fix. If you don't want the blooms, just mow a touch more often during peak flowering and you'll keep the clover green and flowerless. If you don't mind them, leave it, and you'll have one of the few lawns on the street actually doing something good for the world while costing you less. Either way, you stay in control. One last number to leave you with, because it's the one that changed how I think about the whole thing. A traditional grass-only lawn can demand 30 to 40 gallons of water per square foot across a hot summer to stay green. A clover and fescue blend with living compost-fed soil can do the same job on a fraction of that, because the deeper roots and the spongy organic matter hold water like a reservoir instead of letting it run off. Less water, less money, less work, and a yard that gets stronger every year instead of needing rescue every spring. That is the entire game, and now you know how it's played.